How do you remember to be kind when you need it most? 25 years ago, Bill and I were given a statue of Kwan Yin for our wedding. I brought it with me today to show you. She's a beauty. She's a beauty. Of course, I've embellished her, as you can see.
It's a turkey feather.
Turkey feather.
From wild turkey from this.
I'm going to put Kwan Yin, little Kwan Yin with bigger Kwan Yin this morning. She has turned out to be a very important object for me. I even travel with her, as you can see. You never know what's going to speak to you. You never know. What holds you, what supports you, what jogs your memory. And she jogs mine about how I want to relate to myself, to others, to the world, and to the moment. Kwan Yin is known as the goddess of compassion, the, quote, one who sees and hears the cries of the human world, unquote. Compassion is a resonant feeling of deep empathy for another's suffering that is accompanied by a strong desire to alleviate pain. In Chinese Buddhism, Kwan Yin is synonymous with the Tibetan Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, who represents the pinnacle of mercy, compassion, kindness, and love. One Buddhist legend posits Kwan Yin as vowing to never rest until she had freed all sentient beings from the cycle of suffering. Despite strenuous effort, she realized that still many unhappy beings were yet to be saved. After struggling to comprehend the needs of so many, her head split into 11 pieces. Amitabha Buddha, one of the Buddhas, seeing her plight, gave her 11 heads with which to hear the cries of the suffering. And upon hearing the cries of the suffering and comprehending them, Kwan Yin attempted to reach out to all of those in need, but found that her 2 arms shattered into pieces. Once again, Amitabha came to her rescue and appointed her 1,000 arms with which to aid the many. Like Avalokiteshvara, Kwan Yin in this form represents the omnipresent mother, looking in all directions simultaneously, sensing the afflictions of humanity and extending her many arms to alleviate them with infinite expressions of her mercy. We grow the arms of a benevolent other to hold our own and others' suffering. We grow the arms of a benevolent other. We haven't arrived yet. What helps us remember what we're trying to embody? The statue of Kwan Yin moves around in the house, the meditation hall and the bathroom, 2 primary places. I put her where I need her, where I need a visual reminder to be kind and caring. And as I said, she travels with us. She travels with us so I can make an environment that feels sacred, that feels like I'm orienting toward kindness and caring. She's an active part of my holding environment, of how I set up the practice, a touchstone, a mindfulness bell that reminds me to assume this attitude of kindness and care. As I've mentioned before, I live with pain. I live with chronic migraines and a chronic skin condition that requires patience, time, and care. And as you might imagine, there's a fair amount of aversion and judgment that comes along with that. I used to be quite hard on myself, punishing really. Either I'd ignore the pain, in which case it got worse, or I'd judge myself for having it, believing to be defective. Both left me feeling bad. I was rough on myself, especially around my skin condition. It felt rather shameful to feel like I had a condition that others could see. And I meted out compassion very clinically. Like, I'm trained as a nurse and I meted it out very clinically. But it was neither kind, really, nor caring. Pema Chodron says, compassion for others begins with compassion for ourselves. At some point, I really became aware of the negative effect of my harsh inner critic, and I realized that I needed some help. And I remember deliberately retrieving her from the place in the meditation hall and placing her on the bathroom sink, on the counter in full view. And gradually I added a few others, the Virgin Mary, Mother Teresa, the Saints Teresa and Susan, for whom I'm named after. I surrounded myself with beings who symbolized kindness and care that I wanted to embody. These were my pantheon of bodhisattvas, my pit crew to help me in a place that I associate with pain, in the place where I deal with my pain. I wanted and needed a physical reminder to hold this attitude of kindness. Last year, I saw an exhibit of one of my favorite artists, Frida Kahlo. She suffered a great deal with pain, but I didn't know that the bathroom held a special place for her as it has for me, a private sanctuary where she attended to her suffering. I'd like to read something to you. When Frida Kahlo died in 1954, her grief-stricken husband, muralist Diego Rivera, took her personal belongings and locked them in her bathroom in her home, the Casa Azul in Mexico City. 50 years later, the space was finally opened, and Gracia Urtebein was commissioned to photograph it. Through Urtebein's work, we enter into the legendary painter's private life and encounter a composite portrait of Kahlo's suffering and resilience. The photographs represent a visual and emotional narrative of the intimate space and of the objects that symbolize sickness and healing. Kahlo contracted polio as a child, and at 18, she had survived a near-fatal bus accident, sustaining grave injuries that required numerous surgeries throughout her life, and eventually cost her one leg. And even though Kwan Yin, the Virgin Mary, and Mother Teresa were at my side, for numerous years, I still bullied myself. I'd glance at them and sometimes literally stop what I was doing and gaze in their faces, sometimes with tears streaming down my face, and I'd invoke a sort of prayer that said something like, "Please make this suffering go away." I hadn't internalized the posture of loving the suffering that was there, befriending it, giving it the kind attention that a caregiver would. But with time and with effort, at trying, practicing, inhabiting this view, I began to hear a softer voice, a mix of all of those who have loved me and who have wished me well, and feel the heartache and the heartbreak. And it's this landing in the middle of suffering and feeling that was the beginning of transforming my relationship to myself and my suffering. With caring attention and tenderness, the pain was tended to. And this is what compassion is: touching into the pain with tenderness, the quivering of the heart, the landing in the awareness of the suffering, seeing it, letting it register, feeling it, and appreciating what is being endured, holding it kindly and tenderly, however it is. So back to the beginning. How do you remember to be kind? What helps you kindle kindness and compassion? Who or what objects, images, props, words might help you remember? Where might these symbols be useful in the moment in order to help you keep your heart open and grounded so that you can hold the suffering that is present? Discover what works. Play around. Use objects, use poetry, use whatever you need to help you hold the posture of kindness and compassion. It's for your welfare. Thank you for your kind attention.